This is why the biggest secret superpower you have to changing the world is your own creativity. Hey there, world changers. In today's video, we're going to be jumping into one of my favorite topics of all, which is your creative genius zone. Make sure you get a copy of the book, How to Save the World. It's right here in this chapter. So why am I so interested in you using your creativity to try and change the world? Well, this is where your ultimate power comes from. Now, have you ever felt that you had some sort of bigger calling for the world, or you had some purpose in life you had to use yourself for? Well, I've always had this feeling, and I think you probably have it too. And that feeling is this energy that the universe is whispering to you that you're not yet operating from your creative genius zone, and you really need to do the work to discover it. You see, each of us has this creative force within us. It's as unique as our own fingerprint, and no one else can replicate it. It's not anything that you can copy or you can learn. It's something that you find within yourself and you cultivate it and you give it to the world. And I started this chapter with this amazing quote from the iconic dancer Martha Graham. And she says, "There is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost." Getting in touch with this creativity matters, because when we're trying to change the world, we are doing things that have not been done before. That's the whole idea of change, that you're doing new things. And the very definition of creativity is to do something or make something that hasn't been done before. So the only way you're going to get into a flow and start making progress on change is if you get really comfortable with the creative process of doing new things that nobody has ever done before. And there's this one big philosophy in this, which is that we're not going to change the world by shouting down an enemy or getting angry at people or fighting the system. We only change the world from digging into our creative power to come up with the ideas, the inventions, the innovations, the artworks, the technology, whatever it is. We need to dig into our creative force to come up with the solutions, to implement the solutions that are going to change the world. And that one essential insight is what gives people the power to get really good at making change happen. So don't draw your motivation to try and change the world from how bad everything is. Draw your motivation from the dream of how wonderful you think the world could be, and find the fuel for your dream by digging into your creative force. And when you do that, you'll find that your mission to change the world is not some sort of miserable sacrifice where you have to give everything up. Changing the world becomes your greatest work of art. It becomes the great work of your life. Creativity can sometimes get typecast as these crafty hobbies like embroidery or watercolors or baking. But I have a much deeper philosophy for what creativity is all about. And I think it comes right down to the very molecules and atoms and electrons that make us up. And I want you to zoom out a bit and think about the universe, not just now, but right since the universe was created 13 billion years ago. They say that the universe was created with a big bang, but that didn't create all the molecules and planets and life that we have now. In the early days of the universe, it was just this big blob of energy. It didn't even have light yet. But then all the forces like gravity started to emerge, then light started to come about, then particles started to form, and those particles started to form into atoms, and then those atoms started to stick together into molecules, and then planets and stars were born. And then we started to get this one special chemical, the self-replicating chemical, and then that started to create life. Then life forms started to evolve from simple one-cellular organisms right through to the complex organisms we have today. But evolution didn't stop there. Then the animals started to create tools of their own. And human beings, we've started to create enormously complex tools like aeroplanes and cars and houses and computers. And synth pop and toy dinosaurs. So we can see the evolution of technology not as separate from nature, but as an extension of nature. And when you start to look at this thread from the beginning of the universe right up until now, what you see is this constant state of evolution. But every atom, every molecule, every organism, every piece of DNA is constantly part of this state and this flow of evolution. And I believe our purpose in life is to synchronize and to harness and to flow this universal energy through us to the very best creative potential that we have to do the best good in the world with it. And the way that we evolve and that we innovate is to get out of our silos and start mixing different spheres of knowledge. You need to mix biology with hardware hacking, or graphic design with political advocacy, or game design with environmental sensors like I like to do. There's one story that I love to tell from the author of a popular game design textbook called The Art of Game Design. His name's Jesse Schell, and he tells a story about how he liked to juggle when he was a teenager. And he went to this juggling festival, and he found this one guy that had this incredible juggling style. He was totally different to all of the other jugglers. And the juggling guy noticed the young Jesse looking at him, and he said, "Do you want to know what my secret is? My secret is I don't look to other jugglers for how to learn how to juggle. I look everywhere else." And Jesse writes in the book that this changed his approach to creativity forever. And now when we're trying to learn and evolve and grow, we tend to look to other people around us to learn what we need to do, what we can emulate. But when we want to really be creative, do something new that hasn't been done before, we need to look out at other fields in completely different perspectives. Maybe you'll get something from looking at the ballet. Maybe you'll get something from a psychology textbook. Maybe from the art gallery. Maybe from getting into computer science when you're totally terrified of computers. We need to absorb knowledge from other domains around us and synthesize this, because the magic of innovation happens in the confluence of two different domains of knowledge that have not previously coexisted. You're probably thinking, well, how do I tap into my creative genius zone? Well, there's one thing your creative genius needs, and it will die if it doesn't get it. And that is the allocation of time. It's the easiest thing in the world to make sure you do everything else except allocate time every day to your creative genius zone. But once you make this time, start with 1 hour. It could be from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. It could be during your lunch break. And you sit down in this time, make sure you're uninterrupted, and then you ask these big wonder questions. It could be something like, how could I use my best creative force to do the most good in the world? That's one I like to ask. Or it could be something like, if I was given $1 billion and I had to do something good with it, what would I spend the money on? Or if I had every creative resource available to me, if I was a gifted filmmaker, a gifted technology developer, if I could write code, if I could do public speaking to millions of people, if I could develop movements, if I was an incredible illustrator, whatever it is, you could do anything you wanted. What would you make? What would you put out into the world? And start asking these questions, not what can I achieve or what can I get out of the world. Ask the question, what can I give to the world? Now, when you ask the question, what can I give? That's an interesting question. That's what will get your imagination and your creativity ticking to come up with your best ideas yet. And make sure that you do this creative time every day, just like going to the gym, and just let it flow. See what comes out of you. Since I've been doing this practice, I have done the best world-changing work of my life. Don't waste your life paddling in the shallows of your calling. Don't let fear of not being good enough or fear of trying something new prevent that special energy that you have inside of you coming out and giving it to the world. Who knows what's inside you? You won't know what's inside you unless you start putting in the time and manifesting it and making it happen. You've probably seen that famous quote from Gandhi where he says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." When we can imagine and dream of an amazing, fertile, wonderful world, we can't create that world unless we can first develop the inner creative fertility in ourselves. And when we develop it in ourselves and we practice it and we share it in the world, that is what's going to solve the world's problems and start building the world of our dreams. If you love learning about how to apply creativity to changing the world, you might also enjoy the TEDx talk I gave called Why We Need Creativity and Optimism, Not Doom, to Save the Planet. I'll put the link in the video below. And make sure you get a copy of my book, How to Save the World. We go into a lot more depth about how to bring creativity to the center of the process of making you an incredibly effective world-changing agent. And as always, subscribe to the video, sign up to my website, katiepatrick.com, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next video.